Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Air Force Association's annual Aerospace Cyber Conference and Trade Show, the #1 gathering of U.S. Air Force leaders from around the world who get together here at this extraordinary venue outside Washington, D.C. that always coincides with the birthday of the United States Air Force. And tomorrow, the United States Air Force will be 72 years old. Our coverage here is sponsored by L3 Harris and Leonardo DRS, and it's our honor to be talking to United States Air Force Major General Mike Fantini, who has one of the coolest jobs in the United States Air Force, which is the director of the Air Force's Warfighting Integration Center. Truly the organization that is serving as a prime architect for the Air Force of the future, as we heard from the Chief, General Goldfein today. Sir, thanks very much for the time.
Thanks, Vago. It's great to be here.
So talk to us a little bit. You know, the chief walked us through a little bit of the vision and the hard work you guys have been doing. There was a great panel discussion at the Mitchell Institute that, will walk through some of these issues. Talk to us about the mission of the Warfighting Integration Center, because I think folks have a tendency of maybe not fully understanding what AFWIC's mission is. Talk to us about what the mission is and what you guys are trying to accomplish.
Well, thanks. That's a great topic, and I boil our mission down into four words. Four words being: one, first, design; second, integrate; third, develop; and then fourth, impact. So if I can execute all four of those, then, and we own three of those four areas. So what is the design and the future concept of the Air Force? And so this could be 5, 10, 15 years into the future, but what do we believe is going to be a winning combination? We have a challenge, and our challenge is that we have to take that future concept and essentially draw a thread and pull that all the way back down to how do we begin to shift resources to what we believe to be a valid concept. There's a lot that goes into that. Integrate. Traditionally, the Air Force has been into core functions, and our core functions have been aligned to our mission areas of nuclear deterrence, rapid global mobility, air superiority, global precision attack, information or ISR, as well as any number of things. But how do you break that core function stovepipe of 12 activities and integrate that sooner for the chief so he doesn't get a homework assignment that he only has 2 hours to cram for?
Right.
And develop. What does capability development look like? And pull capability development up to a strategic level where we're using our 4-star and our political appointees' time in a more relevant and valid way to identify what capability do we need that's going to be able to prove a concept or not. And then finally, impact. And the impact portion is our implied task. The chief wants us to impact the resources of the Air Force. And so we need to work across the resourcing community, which is in the A8, the acquisition community under Dr. Roper, and those subsequent program offices to begin to shift and move where we believe the future of the Air Force is going.
And one of the things the chief also said is that in the next budget, your hard work will be showing some fruits in terms of the muscle movements that are going to happen with on the resources side of things. And as you've said in each one of these, you haven't said it yet, so I'll say it for you, is to be very practical and not overpromise and underdeliver, right? So you're not getting into la-la land stuff, but is actually actual deliverables. The threat picture, which we have been talking about for some time, continues to evolve, and you're privy to the highest level intelligence in terms of how that threat picture is developing. As you look to what the threat picture is, not just today, but you look at it 15, 20 years from now, what are the adversary capabilities that will most two-part question. What are the adversary capabilities, but also the technological opportunities that will both help adversary, but also help us get to where we can maintain that deterrent as well as combat warfighting edge?
So I'd say, from my experience, which is really effectively backed up by analysis, and we also see it in the threat reporting of the entity or the warfighting entity that's able to make decisions faster and move capabilities more quickly is going to win. And so, to me, that's the observe, orient, decide, act, the OODA loop. That's building situational awareness. And as a young officer and fighter pilot from past, the person that had the most situational awareness was successful in whatever mission they were trying to get at. And so that's where we see this ability of being able to identify 4 kind of points of light of where we see the future force moving, the ability to fight in, from, and through space, the ability to truly execute multi-domain command and control where any sensor and any shooter can be connected, the ability to generate combat power from under attack, inside that proverbial notional bubble that we talk about, and outside that, and what's the proper mix of how you bring those capabilities together. And then finally, being able to execute logistics, logistics under attack. And today we heard the chief articulate this about connecting the joint fight and supporting joint warfighting, being able to execute multi-domain command and control, being able to execute the ability to move to win. And the movement to win is moving, whether it's combat resources across the battlefield quickly, or moving physical assets out of harm's way. If you're able to bring these things together and you're able to make decisions in front of and faster than the threat, then you're going to be successful.
And so ultimately, you're not concerned as much with the specifics of what an adversary is doing, but more the best way that we can actually organize and right. So what's the push and the pull here on between those two things? Or is it getting to that better, faster decision cycle and sort of more ubiquitous command control information that's actually going to hold you in good stead no matter what the threat picture is, say 5 or 10 years from now?
So there's a lot to unpack there. So so from the concept of being able to take the threat, which would drive your strategy, which would drive your concept, which subsequently informs a design, you establish requirements, then you actually go out and acquire capability that you plan to field and test and train and fight with. We're in an environment nowadays where the enemy gets a vote, right? We've been in environments since arguably 1990 where we've been able to parlay the dominance that we've built over the 70s, 80s, and late 80s, and we've been riding that wave. Now we're in a situation where the enemy gets a vote. This is peer competition. If we're able to build capabilities and make decisions faster and field things more quickly, that should create the deterrent effect that goes along with foundational nuclear deterrence. But from a conventional perspective, that's going to cause the enemy not to step off because they're going to have that seed of doubt of whether they're going to be successful or not.
How do you respond to critics who look at, the integration piece of this is potentially where you unlock the most power. On the other hand, there is a concern that with adversaries who can jam, use offensive cyber to great effect, will be able to interrupt lines of communications, and therefore be able to systemically degrade even the most, a network that's even intended to be the most resilient at the end of the day.
Sure.
In which case there's this concern that this whole connected future thing actually becomes potentially a liability and not as effectual as it could be. Is that a valid concern, or do you feel that that's a little bit overrated? Because we heard the chief actually use a really, really good, he said it's not a bubble, it's sort of Swiss cheese, is more thinking about what, because there's this tendency of thinking of, once the Russians have S-400s, it's an impregnable and it's a dome of casts, armored lid that goes on things. And he's like, nah, it's actually Swiss cheese and there's a lot of things we can take advantage of. What's the right way to think about that interconnected future? And do you feel certain that when we get there, we're going to have that security in that overall network to operate the way that we envision ourselves operating?
Right. So let me go back to your very first element of your question. Should we be concerned or not? Yeah, we should absolutely be concerned. But that's a healthy, and pragmatic way of approaching a problem to understand, can I really achieve what I am intending to achieve? And so the criticality and the beauty of our system across the Department of Defense is we develop capabilities and we just don't field them, right? We go out and we test them and we put them in a relevant environment. And it's not a guarantee, but we want to be able to do that. And so from the perspective of, am I concerned? Yeah, absolutely. That's a healthy, pragmatic concern that provides a high level of confidence that we'll be successful. The thought of ability to integrate. I believe, and I've thought this for a number of years, that the purple aspects of the Department of Defense and true joint warfighting capabilities that began with Goldwater-Nichols because of the failures that we saw before that and the lack of performance that you can trace back through history, that was an immense step in bringing our services together and creating a more integrated, resilient Department of Defense. This multi-domain command and control aspect, in my mind, is kind of a follow-on technical effort to kind of go, let's make sure that we don't create systems that are parochial to any one particular service, any one particular country, or any one particular intelligence agency, right? If we have a vision of establishing how we should be connected, how we want to be connected because we believe there's synergy there that's going to make us more effective as a joint force, we absolutely should pursue that. Now, the pragmatic and clear-eyed aspect of that's a boiling the ocean challenge. That is an immense challenge. And so folks will criticize us for having that vision. And what I am committed to is I will guarantee us progress on the way to realizing that vision. And that's what we really need to understand. And the beautiful thing that we've seen just over the last 6 months is the services are coming together to do that. The coalition want to be part of that. The intelligence community wants to be part of that. In many ways, there's elements of capability that other agencies have that are out in front, and we want to kind of go, hey, I want to leverage that and pull it into the kind of concepts and really more like execution, because a concept is interesting and immaterial unless you're going to shift your resources towards making it a reality. And we got to go out and prove these things as well.
I want to get to the resources question in a second, but you mentioned about the importance of the joint force and how everybody's bringing pieces of this. How are you, on a daily basis, interacting with each of the other services as well as with allies? Because you go to the UK, you go to France, you go to Germany. There are a lot, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. There are a lot of really, really good minds. Italy, who are thinking about these same problems and how to tackle them at a very, very high end of warfighting. It's been really incredible talking to some of our allies and the really rich thinking they bring even from some smaller countries, for example. How are you harnessing all of this, and how are you all sharing in this so that all of you kind of get to the same place? Because this warfighting environment is one that all of us are going to be living in.
So I wouldn't say we have touches on a daily basis. I'd say my folks have touches on a daily basis. But the really interesting thing about what's going on in this ecosystem right now, we fly, I'm a water skier, so we kind of travel in the wake of Army Futures Command. Lieutenant General Jim Richardson is one of the deputy commandants for General Murray in Futures Command. I was in Afghanistan with Jim in 2013 to 2014. Admiral Jim Kilby is a 3-star. I went to Capstone with Jim, and we're friends from a previous life as well. Lieutenant General Eric Smith is the Marine Corps' lead. We all know each other, and we happen to like each other as well. And so there's that element of personal networking and collaboration where we're pretty much aligned, I feel, as a Department of Defense on this multi-domain operations concept. The challenge is going to be, okay, there's this element of trust that we need to have as services, as well as with our international partners, that, let's develop the consortiums. Let's develop the standards and interfaces that are going to enable us to be successful. So to your question of what is can you really build a resilient network that the threat's not going to be able to take down? Well, there's a definite maybe there. But I believe that if a Navy sensor's able to feed an Air Force shooter that's able to feed an Army shooter, you can't take everything down all at once. And the enemy has the same challenges we do. They have culture, they have personalities, they have technical challenges, and they're not 10 feet tall. They're not 100 feet tall. So, but it's not going to be what we've experienced over the last 30 years. And that is where a very interesting play of the beauty of the National Defense Strategy has really allowed us to conceal around this existential challenge that posits to us, as opposed to a non-existential challenge.
Last question. The chief said it, so I have to ask you, how does the budget move? He said that there'll be a major muscle movement. That'll be your fault. I'm just kidding. You will have shaped it. So you're going to get some love notes, and I'm sure some, lose a couple of Christmas party invitations. But, talk to us about what are the kinds of muscle movements that we're going to see out of this that are going to show, hey, look, the needle is moving. Because I have to say, as somebody who's looked at innovation and covered the department for almost 3 decades now, the amount of change, the pace of change is extraordinary, not just with us, but with our allies as well, in trying to move all of these needles into the directions they got to be moved in. What are some of the muscle movement changes we're going to see in the next budget?
So it says the chief, I would say, previewed this morning, we believe space is the ultimate high ground. The true ability to realize this concept of multi-domain command and control. What are we doing to be able to generate combat power? And what are we doing to be able to prove some of these concepts? And then how do we support this logistically? And I think that is where we see our resourcing coming in alignment with the National Defense Strategy. And the test is gradable to 100%, right? Because we're going to get a lot of help as it goes through the process, as it goes into the Joint Staff, OSD, OMB, and then it gets onto the Hill. But we want to stay firm in our commitment that we believe we're making these movements that are going to make us more relevant. And really, the bottom line is it's about more effectiveness for the joint fight that the chief's vision and the secretary's vision, in order to be able to realize those visions.
Major General Mike Fantini, who is the director of the Air Force Warfighting Integration Center. Sir, thanks very, very much. I could spend another hour talking to you, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to do that in another format. And I'm sorry, General Highnote, who was supposed to be here with us, was not able to join us. But I think we'd love to talk to Q as well in the future. Sir, thanks very much.
Absolutely. It's a real privilege to be able to team up with General Highnote and Q. He's on injured reserve. We'll get him back after rolling his ankle.
He was preparing for a marathon, so it's kind of actually a pretty cool way to injure himself. But I think the work you guys are doing is really tremendous. So it's a real honor to watch it. Thanks very much for all the hard work, and looking forward to other updates.
Great. Looking forward to providing them. Thanks, Vago.